Welcome to the Beyond the Bestseller podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Shuknecht, and today's guest is Sandy Gerber, author of Emotional Magnetism. This one's going to be fun. Let's get into it. Hi, Sandy. Thank you so much
Hi,
for coming
Kelly.
on. Thanks for coming on the Beyond the Bestseller podcast. You were one of the very first women that I reached out to be a guest on this podcast because you and I go back a couple of years. I read
Mhm.
your book. I even like found a little spot in it that I want to talk about once we get into it
For
with the
sure.
quiz. So yeah, I would love to start out with just having you introduce yourself. Tell us about you and kind of what you're doing, and then we'll start talking about your book.
Okay, for sure. Well, thank you for having me on your show. I mean, it's amazing what you're doing to help women and really inspire them with your knowledge. So, thanks again, Kelly. And you've been a huge supporter of mine, so I really, really want to thank you for that. So I'm Sandy Gerber, everybody, all the listeners out there. I am an author, I am a professional speaker, a certified communication coach, and an entrepreneur, and a kid at heart. Let's not forget about that.
I love it. Well, so your book is Emotional Magnetism, and I keep saying how I have the guests that are coming on the show are women entrepreneurs, women who wrote a book typically to promote their business, but your book really wasn't that. It was more of like, would you call it like a passion project? I don't know. What would you call
Yeah,
that?
I mean, I'd call it an adventure, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, essentially the book started, it's an interesting story. But the journey started about 15 years ago. And so I was kind of living a double life at the time, right? So I was a marketer and a communication expert, and I was working on some of Canada's best brands. I mean, by all accounts, I was rocking it from 9 to 5. But then in my personal life, I was failing. I mean, I had two failed marriages. I'd completely given up on finding Mr. Right. And research was telling me that like it didn't look good, right? Because statistically, the number one reason that relationships fail is poor communication.
Mm.
So I dove into what I call my decade of self-development. And any of you that have read nonfiction books, you know what I'm talking about here, the stack of books beside your bed. But I did that for about 10 years. And I was really trying to find, Kelly, like, what's the key to effective communication? Like, I could do it really well in my business, but I couldn't do it in my personal life. And so I started reading everything I could get my hands on. I was like on a mission, like every day I practiced the 7 habits of highly successful people. I tried to shift from good to great. I made 4 agreements. I blinked and stumbled over the tipping point. I had an uncomfortable 4-hour work week. I mean, I ate the frog, I moved the cheese. I did it all, right? And for short stints of time, I'd see some improvement, but nothing really long lasting until I stumbled upon a book from the 60s. Now, this was a book by Roy Garn called The Magic Power of Emotional Appeal. And it changed my life. And so what happened was I realized as I was reading this book, I learned about emotional appeal theory. And I didn't even know what this was. I don't think many people do.
Yeah.
And it's the 4 emotional appeals that drive our decisions. Like think of it as like emotional triggers. And I really didn't know anything about this. And so after I read this book, I was left completely stunned because everything kind of fell into place. I realized, why did I make the choices I had in my life, right? Why did I choose my career? Why did my relationships not work? Why, did people who had said, she's never happy, why that made sense, right? And
Hmm.
so I just felt so passionate about what I had learned. I started applying some of this into my business at the time. And I was working out of my bedroom, right? Like I had a little tiny desk in the corner of my bedroom. And I started applying some of this messaging, these emotional magnets, as I call them, into that. And that business very quickly grew to a top 100 fastest growing company. I mean, it was amazing to see that this was actually working because my communication was connecting with people's emotional magnets. And then I thought, if this is working in my business, I could probably make this work in my personal life. So I actually went out on a date with my now beloved husband of 11 years and the love of my life. And I asked him on the first date for his emotional magnet, and we've honored that ever since. And so people started seeing these changes, and friends and clients were just pleading with me, write a book about it, and it was helping them in their lives. And so I said, oh, okay, fine. So, when the kids were asleep, I was a single mom, I would write my book. It took about 8 years to research,
Wow.
write, and finally get it to publish. It published in 2022. It's in 3 languages, won lots of awards, and I'm just so happy it's helping people.
Yeah. I loved it. I had to go back to, so you have an actual quiz in the book to help people
Yes,
find their, what do you call it? Like their communication style, their emotional
their emotional
magnet.
magnet.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay. Their emotional magnet. And
Mhm.
I had to go back to that to remember what mine was.
Mhm.
Mine is, can I say what they are? Am I allowed to say what they are?
Yes, of course,
Okay.
of course, of course. Let's get
Are they
into it.
top
It's
secret
juicy.
only for book readers?
No, no, we can get into it.
Okay, so my top is value. My second is achievement, and then safety and experience were the lowest for me. But so those are
Okay.
the four emotional magnets, right? Safety, achievement, value, and experience.
Yeah,
Can you
and you
talk a
can.
little bit about those?
Yeah, happy to. So it was, the book that I read had the four emotional appeals. It was a little technical and it was hard. I would trip trying to tell people about it. So it just naturally formed into a way. I discern things easily. So I naturally turned it into an acronym. Probably the marketer in me too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I called it SAVE, right? SAVE, save. And also because it saved my sanity and my life. So safety is the first one. And that's really like, so your listeners, if they're trying to figure out their emotional magnet right now, you're going to ask yourself, am I motivated by security, structure, environmental, uh, making sure things are okay environmentally and your family, right? These are the things that drive people who have the safety emotional magnet. And it's usually people who are in service to others. They put their family first. They like structure, routine, status quo. And so those are the people that are motivated by safety. And you can probably think like people will say people's names pop in their head as they're reading them because they're like, oh, that's why my brother's like that, or that's why this person's like that.
Yeah.
Achievement is people who are motivated obviously by performance, by challenge, recognition, their opinion and their pride. And so these are the thought leaders, the goal setters, the people that will stop at nothing to reach success. So if achievement's yours, Kelly, that's not a surprise to me because you've done amazing things and you're going to continue to do that. But that's also what's in your heart, what you emotionally need to be happy.
Yeah.
So then we get to your next one, value, right? So value, if you have the emotional magnet of value, you're motivated by worth, growth, um, creating a legacy, leaving a legacy, and significance. So if you have that magnet, the return on your time and investment is really important to you. So and more than usual, like you can't stand standing in lines. Let's just say that your time is your most valuable asset.
Yep.
So, quality is really important to you. Making sure people are getting value from your podcast would make you very, very close to your heart. And so people with value are always focused on that and also leaving a legacy. What's the significance of what they're creating and how will it continue to add value after they're gone? And then the final one is experience. And so that's one of mine. And experience is really, we're a handful. I'll just tell you that right
Yep.
now. But experience are really motivated by creativity, curiosity, progress, and they want and desire what they want in their heart. And so, this is a challenge for people that have experience, but also for the people around them because they can get kind of singed with the activity that happens with these people. So they're motivated by new and change and um, ideas and ways to change things, right? And they're always looking for what's next kind of thing. So much so, I even named my marketing agency Next.
Nice.
So yeah, so those are the four magnets. And what happens is once you understand, I put the quiz in the book so people could quickly figure out theirs.
Yes.
And because a lot of nonfiction books stop at just telling you something, they don't tell you how to actually apply it. So the quiz is helpful that way. And also, there's exercises in the book for when you can, if you know someone's got the value emotional magnet and you want to break through their preoccupation because we're all getting so many messages every day, then you would phrase your message to connect with something they would hear based on them being value. So, it's about like if my husband goes out for dinner, we're going to go out for dinner. All he's motivated by value. I'm motivated by experience and achievement, and and safety as well. So the other night, I said to him, let's order some food. And so I went and I opened up the app and I'm scrolling through and I'm looking for something that I know he likes because he's safety. So he doesn't want new stuff. He knows what he likes. And so I come across, oh, freshy burritos, right? So I go, oh, freshy burritos. Does that sound good, honey? And he's like, no. And I was like, wait, you love freshy burritos. What's going on? And then I realized his other, like he says to me, well, it's 3 blocks away, Sandy. And I was like, oh, yes. His other magnet is value. And he could not justify the expense of being delivered from 3 blocks away. And this is the funny thing, right? That like, this is what kinds of arguments that we have, the disagreements that we have in our life every day. But when you
Hmm.
understand that these are their magnets and you communicate to them, it eliminates all that misunderstanding. So then I just
Yeah.
turned to him and I laughed it off instead of going, you're a freak. And basically, I just laughed it off and I said, okay, well, just wondering, love, how far does it have to be for it to be delivered here? Right. And he said 5 blocks. so, so we ended up finding a restaurant that was 6 blocks away. And he was
Okay.
happy because it validated the expense. And then I was happy because it was a new restaurant experience.
So you're reminding me, it's been so long since I read the book. I need to go back, but you're reminding me of so many things I thought about during the book because, or while I was reading it, because my husband is also an experience emotional
Okay.
magnet. That's his emotional magnet.
Yep.
And like the conflict we will have is like he always wants to go and do things, right? Like he's always
Yeah.
like, you know, like just this weekend he was saying like, oh, I thought about we should go to this concert, we should do this, whatever. And I'm like, I'm just starting to build a business, like my time is valuable, I want to spend my
Yeah. There
time
you go.
doing the thing. Yeah. So like those kinds of things, I kept thinking that. And you're right, like, you read about other people's and you go, oh, that's this person, and that's, these things like really stand out to you about different people in your life, especially I'm
Yeah. And
sure like
like
you're. Oh, go ahead.
it gives you that extra empathy that you didn't have before, right? Like
Yeah.
it gives you this new filter to look at them. I have a sibling who has more money than anybody in the world, in my opinion, and they are motivated by value and they are always looking for the deal, right? They are always, so people around that person, it's like, what is their problem? They've got more money, they're so cheap. So they start labeling that. But when you understand that it's actually value, it's what she emotionally needs, then you're like, okay, I get you. I see you. I know what you mean. And it really lightens up a lot of conversation in the relationships. I do it with my employees at work. I do it with every person that I've ever worked with. I ask them what their emotional magnet is. And it's so easy to tell. And we do have 1 to 2, right? So, and they also change. Like these are developed as early as when you're 6 years old, right? So
Yeah.
it's based
Mhm.
on how you were raised, what emotion, what obstacles you've overcome, and what's going on in your life. And so I know that different things can happen. Like a few years ago, I lost both my parents,
Oh.
and my emotional magnet for achievement switched to safety, right? Oh, I get
Uh,
shivers thinking about that too.
yeah.
But it's like, things in life happen. And so if you're able to say, you know what, my emotional trigger right now is safety. I want to make sure everything's fine with my children in case anything is to happen and stuff. And then it went back to achievement. But it opens up this wonderful freedom and ability to really see and communicate with people clearly. And that's what's
Mhm.
so difficult. Most of us aren't taught how to communicate, right? So this this just changed my life and it's changing people all around the world.
Yeah. Well, I love it. I love things like that, like taking the, personality assessments. I know it's not a personality thing, but it's something, I guess it's kind of a personality thing, but
Yeah.
a little different than like a personality test, like a disc assessment or Colby or something
Mhm.
like that. Little easier to understand too and to like
Mhm.
apply to yourself right away. Well,
Mhm.
you mentioned, well, okay, first question. I have lots of
Yeah.
questions for you. I know we're going to run out
Sure,
of
bring
time
on.
already, but um, so first question, just thinking about, you said it took 8 years and all the research you were doing. How did you find the time to do that as a single mom? I just can't even imagine what that process was like for you.
I think you can understand, like if anything becomes a passion, you find the time. right?
Yeah.
Like I carve time out every day. So I would put like in my calendar an hour of writing time. And I limited the stressful expectations that a lot of authors, first time authors have, right? So I just did 500 words a day. That was it, 500 words. I'm
Oh,
going to do 500
okay.
words. And I knew my first draft would be crappy anyways, right? It always is, but it would have some bones that I could work from. So, I felt so passionate about getting that out to people because it helped me so much. Like I went from, really kind of being bullied and burned out and to like connected and confident, right? And so that I wanted for so many people, right? I still do. It's part of my
Mhm.
mission. So that drives you when you're tired and you've put the kids to bed. It was the option of sitting down and escaping into Netflix or into a nonfiction book in a bath
Yeah.
or sitting down and writing 500 words and then doing that. So
Yeah.
it became a discipline. And then, there was days it was really tough, but it became a discipline. And then as you start seeing that momentum and it starts to grow, and then you're starting in the editing, and now you feel the end is near, it gets even more exciting.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's so true. We tend to say like, "Oh, I don't have time for that," right? But you make time for the things that you really care about.
Really
So
do.
you have this book. Are you still
Mhm.
writing anything, or do you have more writing projects down the line?
Well, I thought about that. I've been asked for that. What I've done is I've switched actually now to focus more on communication coaching. So I do a lot of speaking, a lot of corporate training. I go into organizations and I help them to communicate better at home, at work, and at play. But I also help them to build more communication skills that gives them confidence, engagement, and growth. So that's shifted. I don't have the passion to write another book at this point because right now I'm doing a lot of courses online.
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot of speaking. And so it hasn't come to me yet. But it's, the next thing that I was actually really thinking about doing was writing a book specifically for kids on communication
Oh,
because
I love
social
that.
connection is becoming such an issue for so many. And we've got the phones in front of our faces all the time. And so that social connection piece is missing. I've evolved that into a course that's a fun course with myself as silly Aunt Sandy kind of thing for 6 to 9 year olds. And I'm just working on that right now, but that's my passion right now.
I love that. I'd love to see that children's book. I think that's such a great idea and way to bring that, bring the same idea of that, but distill it down to, what's that like? Um, Talk to me like I'm a fifth grader kind of thing,
Yeah,
like distill
that's
it down
right.
to,
Yeah,
yeah. Um,
totally. And
so
the thing that I sorry, I'm so
no,
passionate about
no,
this one
no.
is Um, the thing that I am excited about is that kids don't really know about nonverbal communication. And so I have created these connection cues that are cute little body language cues that they could learn so that they know when they walk into a room, they're not just thinking about what they're doing, they're actually seeing what's happening around them
Mm,
and being able to adjust their communication for that, right? So that's how we build confidence, right? It's not about feeling so clear on what we're going to say. It's actually feeling confident about learning about other people. That's how you become confident. So in your communication. So these connection cues are a piece that I'm really excited about for kids and adults as well.
yeah, yeah, that's great. Well, you mentioned your business is called Next, and I guess you've talked about the coaching that you do, the courses, all of that. Is that what your core business is, or is it something it's different?
Yeah, so my core business now is speaking and corporate training. That's
Yeah.
really what it
Okay.
is. And so doing that in a whole bunch of different ways, right? Online, or I go on stages across North America, or going to boardrooms with boards and teams. So it's how that presents itself. I mean, the my passion is clear that it's really about helping people to communicate better. And
Yeah.
so the best platform I found for that, the often people want the book, but the best platform is through speaking and corporate training. So I actually show them how to have these skills so that they can take them into their home or their life or their work.
Got it. That's great. Well, so the other day you told a story on LinkedIn about kind of what prompted you to start your business. And I'd love for you to tell that story if you don't mind me pulling that
Sure.
from your LinkedIn content and
No,
having
no.
you share.
Yeah, no, that's great. I call that my Rachel moment. I think that's what you're talking about. This is
Mhm.
okay, so I had just launched e-gaming in Canada. So this was many years ago. It was super exciting. We'd never done e-gaming, like we couldn't buy lottery tickets online before. And so that required a ton of travel. So I went all over the world. Like I went to sexy places like Iceland and Hong Kong and Kamloops and, a lot of places. And that meant I was away from my toddlers a lot. So I remember this one time where I just arrived back from Hong Kong and I'd been on a plane for like 24 hours. And we went to the cottage with the kids. And I remember thinking, all I want to do is just spend time with my little monkeys and walk around and go into the forest. So I woke them up in the morning. We got up early and we went on an adventure hunt. And we're walking, we're holding hands, and I'm asking them to look for special little treasures. And so we're walking, and I'm just thinking, I remember feeling, Kelly, at that moment, like, oh, life is so good. This is so amazing. And then all of a sudden, my son, Jack, he spots a treasure. And so he lets go of my hand, and he runs for it. And he bends down to get it. And as he bends down, he trips over a tree root and he falls. And so I said, oh my gosh, okay, I got to run over. So I go, Jackie, Jackie, I run over to him and I say, it's okay, mommy's here. I'll make it all better. It's okay, love. And he looked up at me and he said, no, Rachel. And I was, I can still feel it. Rachel is my nanny.
Yeah.
And so I was like, my whole world just spun out of control at that moment, right? Because I felt like such a failure.
Mm.
And I think, most moms can appreciate that feeling. They
Yeah.
know we get it a lot. Um, I was embarrassed. I felt terrible. They're my number one priority and always have been. And so, but I also love working, right? Like I love producing. And because I'm achievement and experience, emotional magnets, experience with my children, achieving a great upbringing for my children was really important to me, but so was work, right? So I was trying to balance both. And I failed if my child falls and reaches for the nanny instead of his mother. So at that moment, like I remember, getting back into the house and turning to my husband at the time and saying, okay, that's it. I'm going to stay home 100% with the kids and that's it. And he laughed in my face, right? Because I'm like, he knows me. There's no way I would do that, right? I need other stimuli and I really need to make an impact in the world. It's
Yeah.
beyond being a mother.
Yeah.
So I remember thinking, what do I do? Like, how can I make this happen? And 2 weeks later, it came to me. I knew what to do. I quit my job at the corporate job. So I left a six-figure income. I went into my bedroom and I had the kids help me draw a little in and a little out sign with their crayons and their stickers. And we hung it up on my door, and mommy's bedroom business was open, I have to be careful. It wasn't a bedroom business, it was a marketing consultancy.
Thank you for the
Let's
clarification.
be clear. And then the rest is history. I was able to create my schedule the way I wanted, so the kids were first.
Hmm.
So, I
Hmm.
went to and did a ton with their schools, and I was more present in their life. And I was able to actually share with my clients that this is my priority. While they're little, this is what I'm going to be doing. But I can also take on X number of clients. And then that business grew. And that was happening at the same time that I found this book and started applying this stuff. So I feel that the book found me. I didn't find it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I definitely understand that. I'm sure any woman, working mother understands that pull of like, I want this career,
Mm,
or I have this drive, or whatever, but also that feeling of like, I want to be there for my kids. I was
yeah.
always very fortunate that I have worked from home for almost 18 years now. When I
Great.
was pregnant with my second child is when I found a remote work opportunity, and I have never looked back because that allowed me to do both. It's not
Yeah.
easy. And you mentioned
No.
like I was available to go to, do school things or whatever. It's still hard to do that stuff, but
Yeah.
I'm a big advocate of remote work for women because that is oftentimes what allows us to have the flexibility to
Oh,
do
yes.
both. Not maybe not always gracefully, but to do both.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and there is a huge benefit to being able to throw a load of laundry in between meetings. I mean,
Yeah.
I always say that because it's like we have so many jobs to do. Someone said it the other day, the executive of the household, right? The household executive. And I was like, okay, I like that, but because I'm a marketer, I like that. But it's true. Like you feel like you can knock off a few things on your list without spending time in the car. Although I do find that I do find that I miss the social interaction because I'm experience driven. I love being around people. And because I train people in communication, I love communicating with people.
Right.
So I find I have to augment that with a lot more networking events, social activities to keep that fulfilled.
Sure. Yeah. Well, speaking of networking events and social activities, you have something coming up in December. Are you able to share that with us?
Sure, yes. So a lot of people have asked me over time, quick, easy tips, Sandy. I mean, once they find out I'm a communication coach, two things happen. One, they get really uncomfortable talking to me. And I say to them, don't, I'm not assessing you. And two, they're like, what are your quick tips, So these quick tips that people always want, I've taken those and I put them into a holiday coaching session, if you will. It's an online coaching session because the holidays bring out the worst in us, right? Like we have a lot of difficulty, family drama, family dynamics, stress, trigger questions, like all these things happen during the holidays. So I find this is the time where most of my clients are like 911, I need Sandy right now, tell me what to do. So I put that together into what I call my stress-free holiday playbook, right? And it's essentially because we don't have any time, I've made that the most important thing is that all of this can be learned within under an hour, right? So these are 5 things that you can do that will change your holiday. I mean, they changed my life, right? But they'll change your holiday and you can use them after the holiday. So one of them I call set for success. So it's really, you don't just show up at the holidays hoping that your relative won't ask you that question again, or solving a holiday dynamic that's really been years in the making. You have to prepare. And so set really stands for having the stories ready to share with people that you know or you're meeting, having the experiences that you could build a connection with easily in your pocket, and then triggers like what are you saying, what are your answers if you get asked, why aren't you married, why don't you drink? So these are the things that I remember my father. Gosh, he was such a wonderful man, and he would be able to go into any room and make the most uncomfortable person comfortable in a second. And it was kind of his passion. And I remember we'd be in the car, the big station wagon, on our way to a holiday gathering, and Dad would lean over to Mom and say, "Okay, what are the kids' names again? And what are they into? What do they like to do?" And it's like he'd prep for these conversations. I learned it from him right from the beginning. And then as I was starting to do my research, I noticed, oh my gosh, that's what Dad was doing all along. So he'd say, are they into basketball? Are they doing, what school do they go to? Are they collecting unicorns? Whatever it was, right? And and then he would walk in without fail, able to make a contact and a connection so easily and make people feel heard and seen, right? And valued. So this course, to answer your question in a nice tidy bow, is really my gift to people. It's completely accessible. It's very affordable. It's really for busy moms who have, are stressed enough trying to get everything done. It's for people who are maybe a little uncomfortable meeting new people, like you're going to a holiday party for your partner and you're meeting these new people, or it's just for people who want to enhance their communication skills, right? So that's launching this week, and I'm super excited. It's going to help a lot of people.
Awesome. Well, I will link to that in the show notes. I'll also
Awesome.
link to your book. Question for you. The
Yeah.
quiz, do you have that outside of the book anywhere? Do you have that
No,
as
it
a
used to be on the site, but it's been
okay.
removed now. So it's
Okay.
just available in the book. Yeah.
Okay. So if you want to take it, buy the book. We'll have the
Yeah.
link in the show notes, like I said, and anything else you want me to share. But well, Sandy, man, this time went so fast. I knew it was going to because you just, I just knew this conversation was going to be so great. I've enjoyed this conversation. I've enjoyed your book. I have a review. I'll also, try to link to that in the show notes as well because I've reviewed your book myself.
Yes.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And I love your stories and everything you're doing. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for all you're doing. And remember that what you're doing is truly making an impact. Okay. Because some days we can all feel like we're invisible, but know that every little piece you're doing is having an impact. One person could hear this and it could change their life. And it's because of you, Kelly. So thank you very much for having me on the show and happy
Thank
holidays.
you. Yeah, you too.
Looking for a community of women writers to support and inspire you on your journey? Join the Author Power Circle. Connect weekly with fellow authors, stay accountable, and move your book forward in an encouraging community. Learn more at kellyshuckneck.com.